Welcome to the Success Sensei podcast for anyone interested in success, happiness, and balance. We'll teach you how to be a black belt at life. And now, your host, former professional fighter, multiple world champion, entrepreneur, and investor, Robert Devan.
Bowing in. This is Roundhouse Rob, the Success Sensei, helping you to win at life one kick and punch at a time. And today I'm talking about the 13 life lessons that I learned while training with some of the best fighters in the world. A little bit of a long title, but you'll get my drift as we go on. 13 life lessons that I've learned, specifically from some of the best fighters I've gotten to train with in the world. I've competed in karate, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA. I only realized when I was kind of formulating this podcast that I started competing when I was 13 years old. I did my very first competition, and my last competition I did when I was 37 years old. So that's 24 years of competing across the board in various different disciplines of martial arts. And I've learned a lot along the way, and a lot about life. The underlying principles of martial arts is to try to grow as a person and to try to learn and understand yourself and better yourself. Yes, you're using physical combative strategies and techniques in order to do that. But generally in traditional martial arts, it was all about using all of those techniques and ultimately just bettering yourself as a person. And I do think that I've learned a lot from the people that I've gotten to train with. I'm not going to drop names. This is not going to be a clang. This is going to be a name drop podcast, because I don't want anyone thinking that I'm trying to benefit from anyone's name. But I have gotten the opportunity, as you can imagine, all those years of competing, I've gotten the opportunity to train with a lot of people and a lot of really, really good people and really, really good training camps. And I've learned a lot. So I have my notes here as well, because of 13. I'm not going to remember the 13 off the top of my head, so I might be referring to them a little bit. So we're going to get straight into this, because there's a wealth of knowledge here, and you can take it and apply it to whatever your subject matter is, or whatever you're interested in, or whatever area you want to grow into. Any of these principles can be added. So they're life lessons, even though I've learned them through fighting and through martial arts. Right, number one. And some of them are going to sound obvious. Number one is going to sound obvious to you, but you'll get it when I say it to you. Work hard and pay your dues. A lot of people nowadays think that they don't have to start at the bottom, or that they don't have to work hard, or that they don't have to, hang on, adjust this for a second. So that they don't have to start at the bottom and work their way up. We all have to start somewhere. We all have to pay our dues. It's very, very important that you have a strong, hard work ethic in order to be able to prove yourself to the people that you can learn from. Like, you could imagine if you were a very beginning fighter on the start of their journey, why are experienced fighters going to give you the time of day if you're not a hard worker, or if you think you can start higher up? So you need to work hard, you need to pay your dues, you need to start somewhere, and you need to work your way up. A lot of people think that they don't want to start at a level that they consider as the bottom rung of the ladder, so therefore they never actually start and they never climb. So you have to prove yourself. As a fighter, you have to prove yourself within the gym that you're training at, and you're going to have to start somewhere, which is generally the bottom, especially when you go and train in some of the really large fighter camps. You're not going to be at the top dog, so you have to be prepared to be taking the losses. There's a lot of losses before a win. And also, what I noticed when I was competing at national level, even before national level, when I was competing at local level and club level, I lost before I started to win. Then at county level and regional level, I lost before I started to win. Then at national level, you're losing again. You're getting the idea of this. You're getting the picture. Then I started to win. And same then, you'd go to, say, for me, it was UK level, then it was European level, and then it was international level. There's losses, so many losses on the way before you actually start winning at every stage. So you have to work hard and you have to pay your dues. I know it's an obvious one, but still have a think about these nonetheless. Right, number two, be consistently persistent. So what does that mean? It basically means don't just rely on pure talent. If there's one quality above all else that's really, really important, it's persistence. So I've seen many talented people not stick the course because they weren't persistent, obviously, and I've seen many persistent people who weren't as talented managed to do well and managed to find their way to success. And it was because basically persistence is another word for stubbornness. Stick the course, stick at it, and be consistently persistent. So in other words, just stick at it. Don't give up early. Don't rely on natural raw talent. Don't rely on winning or attaining your very first try at something. It's going to take a little bit. So you've got to stick with it. Most goals take a lot longer than you perceive that they're going to take. So make sure you stick the course. That's number 2. Right, number 3. This is a good one. You are an athlete. What the hell are you talking about, Rob? Well, basically, for many years, I never thought of myself as an athlete. I thought I was a martial artist. I never thought of myself as an athlete. And it was only when I actually realized that I was an athlete that I started to train totally different. I started to eat better. I started to sleep better. And I started to really notice the results. And guess what? You are an athlete as well. If you're training more than a couple of times a week, so if you're training 2, 3 more times a week, I don't care what type of training it is, and you're expecting your body to be performing and you're expecting to be increasing your personal best, your records or goals or times, and you're demanding performance of your body and you're expecting to achieve certain goals, then guess what? You actually are an athlete. So you have to think like an athlete. You have to look after your body. If you're injured, you have to ice. Amateurs don't ice. They don't look after themselves. Just go, I'll be grand, and they carry on regardless. And I understand that toughness of mentality, but a professional doesn't act like that because they know that their bodies are needed for performance and longevity, because you want to be able to do this long term. So they will absolutely look after themselves. They'll eat right, they'll sleep right, they'll train right, or at least they will attempt to, because they view themselves as athletes. So you might need to have that little bit of a mindset change in order to view yourself as an athlete. The same goes for business. If you're involved in business and you don't realize that you're a business person, you need to change your mindset. So it goes for a lot of different things in life, not just fighting, right? That's number 3. Number 4, real training isn't demo training. So real training doesn't look the same as demo training. So people on YouTube or in life, they go to open training sessions where the media is invited and you'll get to see all the fighters looking particularly sharp, showing off, basically, demonstrating, showing off. It's not real training. Real training is a hell of a lot grittier, and you're breaking yourself down and you're going to fatigue and you're going to failure. So it's not actually, you don't leave fresh, you don't leave feeling on top of the world. In fact, you leave feeling that you've somewhat broken yourself and you're not sure if you've overdone it, and you're hoping that you're wondering where you're going to get the energy for the next training session. That's more like reality, which is the same as life. Instagram or social media makes life look like it's really smooth running and it's great, but life is a hell of a lot grittier than it appears to be, especially on social media. So people will look at jobs and consider, oh, you know, your lifestyle or your job is extremely glamorous, but they don't really see the hardship side of things, and they don't see the far from glamour side of things that you have to do in order to be able to do your job or your goals or to achieve something. So keep that in mind. Number 5, right, controlling fear and nerves. Controlling fear and nerves is a massive one for fighters because they do suffer from performance anxiety, fear of failure, fear of getting hurt, fear of looking stupid. All of these things are really big, and they have to know themselves. They have to battle with their own fear and nerves. It's a battle that you're going to lose, so you're not really actually trying to eliminate them. You never really eliminate fear and nerves. People think that the better you get and the more experience you get at competition, the more fear and nerves go away. And it's actually not the truth, because they increase. When you are competing more and you've gotten more experience, you expect more of yourself. Other people expect more of you, and you could have more to lose. So fear and nerves don't actually ever go away. You end up learning how to manage them. So you kind of accept them a little bit more. You have a lot of faith in the adrenaline process. You use your visualization, you use your breathing, and you try to just stay on top of it and manage it. So the actual nerves don't make you more nervous. I've done a podcast on that. Make sure you listen to it. If you're a new listener, make sure you go back through the older ones, because I'm adding every week. And if this is the first one that you've listened to, you probably should listen to the back catalogue as well, because there's some good stuff there regarding the motivation, regarding nerves. I can't even remember what I called it. How dealing with extreme nerves, I think was the name of that. So it should be an easy enough one to find. Right, moving on. How to handle losing. How do you handle losing? Well, the first thing that you don't do is you don't blame everybody and everything else, because that takes control away from you. You now, if you've lost something or you haven't achieved something, you failed at something, and you lay the blame everywhere else, you've now taken the ability away from yourself of being able to effectively change and grow and better yourself and learn from your mistakes. So you need to become a good loser. You need to put all your frustration back into your training. You need to analyze your results. You need to analyze what you did that you liked, what you did that you didn't like, and ultimately grow from the experience. That you cannot do if you don't learn how to handle losing. You won't be able to do that. So it's really, really important, because you're not going to win everything. Everything is not going to go your way, which brings us on nicely to the next one: how to handle winning. So most fighters I know, probably all fighters I know, when they win, they were still kind of not satisfied, because they still were searching to be better. They still found imperfections. They found things that their performance, they still weren't happy with the performance. They wanted to continue to grow from the experience. Even though they'd won, they wanted to make sure they still sat down, analysed, looked at what they did that they were happy with and what didn't work and what they weren't happy with. So even though they won, they were still putting back into the training lessons that they were learning along the way, because no winning is perfect either. So if you can continue to work on it and continue to work on yourself, you're going to hopefully ensure more wins and less losses in the future. There are several strategies to win. So this is number 8. There are several strategies to win. So everything isn't black and white. There's not an A to B. And when you're fighting at high level, you can't just go with the most obvious. It's very important, especially in a sport like MMA, mixed martial arts, where there's so many different variations. There's many ways of actually winning and getting to that win, or getting to your goal in life. And it's a matter of stepping out of yourself, trusting your coaches, trusting your mentors, figuring out and analysing the best strategy that you think you should employ, employing that strategy and sticking with it. And that sounds easy enough to do, but it's not really, especially from a combat sport point of view. When things are going wrong and it's not going your way and you want to abandon your strategy, that's probably the time that you should stick with your strategy the most. So keep that in mind when you are analysing your strategies and you're going to be putting them into play. Certainly have a plan B, but don't give up on plan A too easily until you've really seen it through. So sometimes you just need to stick with that strategy. Number 9, you can be hard and soft. So this is probably an unusual one for people who imagine what fighters must be like. And the top fighters, I'm not talking about amateurs. Amateurs act tough, but professionals are so tough inside with nothing to prove that they're actually very soft people. They can be very friendly, very nice. It's what the fighters that I look up to are like, and it's what I try to emulate, and I hope that I'm somewhat successful in that. And the fighters that I have really admired were the ones that they were superb fighters, but outside of the fighting arena, you would never know that they were fighters unless they told you, but they actually wouldn't really tell you. They wouldn't talk about things like that. They were absolutely totally friendly, totally normal, totally soft human beings that if you didn't know that they were such amazing fighters, you could possibly think that they were weak. But they had it within themselves, that strength within themselves, that they didn't have to prove it or walk around with a chip on their shoulder. So that's the difference between the elite and amateurs right there, and that one alone. Number 10, anger isn't the driving force. So anger, a lot of people view fighting as violence. So they might think incorrectly that anger is a huge driving force behind fighting, but it's actually not. Anger isn't really an emotion that the elite fighters ever really try to use. They try to stick with their ultra competitiveness, fine, and pride, fine, but anger isn't something that's really usable in a combat sport arena, because it can stiffen up your muscles, it can slow down your thinking process. You don't think clearly, you're a little bit more reckless and wild, so you increase the statistics of running into something. So reckless and wild is fine against an inexperienced fighter, but we're talking about the elites here. It's reckless and wild is going to make you run into a punch or a kick or something that you absolutely didn't want to get hit with. So the same in life, if you lose your head and you're relying on just pure raw anger as an emotion, there's very few circumstances that's going to work out for you. So anger, it actually isn't the driving force behind combat sports that people maybe think it is, and it's not. Aggression is different from anger. So you can have positive aggression. So I don't want to complicate this too much. So anger really isn't. Being angry and fighting in the competitive environment isn't something that the top fighters aspire to have or to use or to be. So that's number 10. Right, 11. We're getting there. We're nearly there. Number 11. Program your subconscious. It's only, if you could imagine, you're fighting in front of thousands of people, and you're extremely nervous. Your opponent has you in a hold or a lock, or he's doing a technique on you or something like that, and you realize that you haven't actually learned what you needed to know to escape the scenario, to get yourself out of the scenario subconsciously. When you rely on your conscious memory or your conscious thought or conscious training, you're not going to react quick enough. It's not memorized enough. Conscious thought and conscious memory and conscious training is gone. It's like when we do our driving test, and then if I was retested now, I'd say I'd fail because I'm not adhering to the exact protocol that's used for the test. It's like sitting your leaving cert or whatever your current state exam is. A lot of us can sit that. If we were tested 6 months later, that information would be gone out of our head because it's not subconscious. Subconscious memory is like brushing your teeth, driving. I use driving there as a different example, but brushing your teeth, tying your shoelaces, things like that are automatic. You don't think about it. You can't even remember doing it this morning, more than likely, and that's how subconscious. That's how little conscious thought you use. So to learn something, to really know something, is to have it subconsciously, and it's a totally different way of practicing. What's the quote I've heard recently? It's amateurs practice stuff to get it right, and professionals practice stuff to not get it wrong. So it's a different type of a practice. In a high pressured scenario, if you haven't got stuff memorized in your bones, in your soul, you're going to forget it when you're under pressure. So that was number 11. Number 12, plan for the worst, hope for the best. Fighters imagine and train for their worst possible imagined opponent that they could possibly fight against. So they imagine an opponent who's stronger than them, faster than them, more experienced than them, got better coaching, got better funding, got better equipment, better technical experience. I don't know. They just imagine the worst monster that they can possibly fight against. And this is why so many of them actually burn out. So many fighters. It's a one-to-one combat sport with severe consequences for losing. So fighters are renowned to burn themselves out. And that's because they are training with this in mind of the worst possible case scenario. So you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. So if you can get the balance right and you don't burn yourself out, you 100% are going to be better prepared than if you just trained for an easy scenario or an easy fight or an easy opponent and it doesn't work out that way. You've really limited your chances of success. So plan for the worst, hope for the best. Be pessimistic in your training and be optimistic in your mindset. Disguise your plans. If you're a high level fighter, I'm not talking about amateurs throughout any of this. If you're a high level fighter and you want to punch or kick another fighter, you're going to have to disguise your plans. You're going to have to use a fake or a feint. You can't just go in willy-nilly, recklessly, using all that anger that we talked about earlier and throw your punch or kick and hope that it's going to land. It's unlikely. You've got to hide and disguise your plans. The same goes for business. Same goes for a lot of things. You don't want to show your intention until the very last second when you're actually going to go ahead with your plans, so that you don't risk somebody sabotaging your plans or gazumping you in negotiations or anything like that. Not only that, but nobody really likes the person who talks a lot and says they're going to do a lot of things and none of it ever happens. So keep your cards close to your chest. Disguise your plans. There's enough time when you have all your plans in place and you're actually acting upon your goals and you're going forward with your plans. That's enough time for people to realize what you're at. So fighting is very, very reflective into real life. So that's the 13 life lessons. Because you've listened this far and you're very good listeners, and I'm getting a lot of support from people and I need a lot more support obviously, because we're still very, very early on in the Success Sensei. I want to keep producing free content. I need reviews, I need comments, I need likes, shares and subscribes. Thank you in advance, but because you've listened all the way to the end, I'm going to give you a 14th one. So on any sales course, they'll teach you to undersell and over deliver, and hopefully I'm achieving that. Number 14 is success breeds success. So the biggest fight camps in the world will always attract the best fighters in the world, and the best fighters in the world will always attract other best fighters in the world. So what that means is, if you want to be successful, you have to seek out other successful people, other people doing the very things that you want to emulate and that you want to do. You have to be very careful how you spend your time. You have to be very careful the influences, the success influences and materials, whether podcasts, whether videos, whether radio, magazines, Netflix, whatever sources of information you're going to improve you and your subject matter. You have to be very, very careful that you're using your time wisely. You've got success motivation instead of negative motivation, or instead of negative influences. So success breeds success. Iron sharpens iron, etc., etc. So that's the 14. I hope you got something out of these life lessons. I absolutely would love to hear what life lessons you have, or any different ones. I'd absolutely love to hear. Let's get the conversation going. Every single Wednesday there's a new podcast, a new blog and a new vlog on the Success Sensei channel, so make sure that you're checking them out. As I said, I appreciate any likes, reviews, subscribes and shares. At the moment I seem to be getting a lot of I think I've been in the top 20 in the US, in the podcast charts in the US, which I'm absolutely blown away by, absolutely excited about. So forgive my boasting about it. I've no doubt I won't be there for long because it's such a competitive market, but it's absolutely super to hear that these videos and these podcasts and these blogs are actually reaching that kind of an audience. And come on, Ireland, I need more support from my own country as well as every other country. So as I said, if you've never posted a review or liked or shared or commented before, mine is the one to do it on. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Roundhouse Rob, the Success Sensei. Life is a fight you can enjoy and win. Bowing out.
This has been the Success Sensei, fighting the winning fight. So add us, subscribe, like, and comment. Keep those hands up and keep moving forward.